Remnant, a short story based on a true event. Remnant, noun, a part or quantity that is left after the greater part has been used, removed, or destroyed. I looked around at the motley crew of heads and bodies wedged and packed tightly into the room. 100, maybe 150, I guesstimated. The word remnant sprung from my senses. A remnant of faith, but oddly a huddle of spirits searching for more and not less from their church. This wasn't a spoken utterance, but something I kind of felt floating in the air, rightly or wrongly. A refreshing energy sent to the place. It seemed both ancient and yet modern too. I scanned the room for a place to sit, and I locked onto a couple of empty chairs near the back wall. Our shoulders rubbed as I sat down in the last row of this home chapel. Her hair was brown and rainy wet, and her teenage daughter's eyes were blue and sparkling with life. The seats were tightly squished together to accommodate the crowd, a crowd now threatening to overflow out and into the adjoining courtyard. Our shoulders mashed together once more as another woman sat down to my left in the last remaining chair. I edged my seat to the right a little to give the new arrival a little breathing space. I glanced across to the brown-haired woman to apologize, but she beat me to the punch. Sorry, me shoulders are damp, we've been walking all day, and me and me daughter are soaked through. I hope I don't get you too wet. I wasn't bothered one way or the other. Her cheeks still glowed a rosy red from her outdoor adventures in the elements, and I was rather curious to learn why she was trudging all day in the wind and autumnal rain. Were you out walking all day? I inquired. Well, we've been walking for 2 days, carrying the cross, she answered happily. The cross, I said dumbly. Yes, our Lord Jesus on the cross. 33 miles we've walked, me and me daughter. Our group started in Roscommon yesterday and then walked here from Ballinasloe this morning. Interesting, I thought, very interesting. So we fell into a short whispered conversation, and I soon learned that there were 4 different groups from 4 different provinces of Ireland out gallivanting in the jumbled up Irish wind, rain and sunshine. All had walked exactly 33 miles, but from 4 different starting points, depending on what province they originated from, and who'd all converged on Clonmacnoise that evening. As the brown-haired woman filled me in, I was struck again by how radiant and alive her daughter looked as she listened to her mother speak about their experiences over the previous 48 hours. This was a kid who wanted to be at this mass with their mother. Most unusual and heartwarming. Before long, a hush descended and cut short our chat as the serious-looking priest at the top of the room threw a few shapes to begin proceedings. I looked across the gathering and could see a German shepherd-looking dog stretched out on a couch asleep. A husband and wife sat on the edge of the same settee, or near it, I think, but were too polite to disturb the dog or try to move him and make more comfortable room for themselves. My memory, which I must admit can be quite shaky on recall, it seemed there was a sermon at the beginning and in the middle too. At some point the 10 Commandments and purgatory were introduced into his conversation with the congregation, and I closed my eyes and kept them closed for a good while. Read into that what you will, I suppose. I sometimes wonder if I'm already settled into purgatory and perhaps even getting comfortable here. The priest rattled through the importance of adhering to the 10 Commandments, like a surgeon showing a class of medical students how to remove a cancer, one growth at a time. Helpfully though, the dog on the couch began to snore, which brought a low murmur of muffled laughter from the back of the room that lightened the seriousness of the subject matter. My higher power definitely has a sense of humor, is all I'll say. One thing I've noticed since I began this cautious journey back into the formal structures of the church is that the earthly instruments of God or Jesus get in the way of my connection to a higher power more often than they don't. I can be distracted easily. For example, if the 10 Commandments were a subject on the leaving certificate, I'd be constantly hovering around a grade D. An inherently know an A+ grade was most unlikely at any time in the future. Don't get me wrong, it's very much no harm to get these reminders now and again and feel bad about them and work on them, but many are already feeling bad enough. Too bad, probably. So a little too much imbalance exists between a focus on sin versus love for me. I've come around more and more to the idea that I have to love my way out of my problems, which is an admission a middle-aged man wouldn't want to be saying out loud in the cold light of day too often in public. But even that goal is more of an obstacle than it might sound on first hearing, especially when I find it easier to hate than to love, and to criticize more than to praise. However, if you're pulsing out love, you're also beating back the darkness. So runs my theory. To be frank though, I'm not even sure how I might do this consistently without getting arrested or having Ballinasloe Mental Hospital reopened. At any rate, I better cease chattering about love and all things nice, in case Eamon Ryan hears about it and slaps a carbon tax down on top of my head. Prayers for the faithful were a most interesting affair. All the devotions were randomly offered up from the faithful seated in the pews. These offerings went on for a good 15 minutes and indicated to me the place was jam-packed with like-minded people. Awesome, I thought. Faith-based new radicals. Normal people in old money. Yet another new jigsaw piece. A hitherto unknown piece to add to the Irish resistance jigsaw puzzle. Now, based on the accents on display during this section of the Mass, it seemed to me Northerners made up more than 1/4 of the audience. That is to say, the province of Ulster was punching above its weight at this gathering. A delicious thought hit my mind. Wouldn't there be a certain Irish irony and symmetry if it was Northern faith that saved the Irish Republic? If it was the light of their faith, this remnant, surgically separated at the dawn of our independence, who came down to save the island from the pervasive cancer of ever-expanding globalism. And that isn't a Catholic observation. I've noticed on my few trips across the border in the last 2 years that people of both strong Catholic and Protestant faith were in agreement on many of the hot topic globalist narratives running rampant across our shared island. One young woman offered up prayers for the unborn, again a northern voice. I noticed to myself that the average age of the 4 provinces in attendance was probably lowest in this Ulster cohort. I remembered she was a member of a crew of maybe 6 or 8 younger people that I observed earlier at the barbecue. All looked in their early 30s. The men were handsome, strong and fit, and as a Donegal man might put it, the women were wild beautiful. The prayers went on, and I found a great comfort in listening to the different voices and mulling over their various concerns, highlighted through prayer. Near the end, a woman offered up prayers for our leaders. I opened an eye and looked hopefully across to my German friend, luxuriating on the couch, and a hankering for his wife canine interjection with a bark of protest or two. He let me down though, and snoozed on through it unperturbed. Afterwards, on camera reflection, I grudgingly saw the wisdom of the silence and conceded that clattering a couple of our fathers down on top of their collective political heads mightn't automatically place me in the category of controlled opposition. Indeed, as I write, I'm embarrassed at the impulse to exclude them from the prayers, as they need them more than most, I suspect. After maybe 80 or 90 minutes, the Mass ended, but wondrously the time flew by. The din of the crowd rose and conversation bubbles began to break out all over this little home shrine to faith. I took my leave at this point, as I hadn't earned the right to walk and mingle amongst their number, pausing only briefly outside to cup my hands and light a cigarette. The autumnal darkness had fully descended, and I was reminded for the first time this year that another season of long summer days was drawing to a close. How many seasons had I left? I idly pondered for a moment. I sat into the car and continued smoking, then looked out a final time at the lights of the house and chapel within, and the people starting to leak out into the courtyard. Something was right about this place and the people who'd walked the 33 miles to arrive in it. That's all I can say, really. Sitting and standing as they were, rubbing against the walls of the old monastic setting in Clonmacnoise and the ancient teachings and settlements of St. Kieran, I was clueless as to what exactly was right about this whole experience. Yet these new waves of emotion, recent additions to my life, started rumbling in the depths of me once again, and I knew it was so. A stirring was upon me, and I resigned myself to the cursed fact that ignoring it wouldn't work anymore. So I dumped the fag into an empty coffee cup, stuck in the earbuds, and decided not to avoid the inevitable. A song sprang to life along with the engine of the car, and off we went, leaving behind an old site with new faces, determined to carry their crosses, and perhaps some of the crosses of this country too, the Remnant. Again, the word pleased me, and I began to lose myself in the music of the night and the music of their might.